which looks alive. It's important with the respect of the people to the values. And these are the pictures of the tragedies of Hiroshima and what we can see today. So I consider that the same will take place in Bakhmut and other our cities and settlements and villages and so on. Definitely it will be like that. Unfortunately today it's a tragedy, but in the future there will be reconstruction and recovery. So when you say that we are asking about something, I still consider that this is not correct. It's not appropriate. We are not asking. I would like to thank you, superiors. We are being invited. And this is the common vision of the peace of the future. This is the common recovery and reconstruction because Ukraine is protecting common values. We have ruined and destroyed thousands of square kilometers. This is just horrors. Donbass, where President Putin came to, telling everyone and providing the ideas for some of the states which were mentioned by Ms. Journalist before, saying and emphasizing as if he's saving lives of the Russian-speaking people, the whole Donbass, where there were lots of Russian-speaking people, this is how it looks like now, unfortunately. This is the tragic thing, how Hiroshima used to look like. The right microphone, the question, please.
Zelenskiy, I am from domestic media called MBS. I would like to ask you, you've just visited Atomic Bomb Museum and this evening right next to this building. Was there any specific exhibition that still stay in your mind or in your memory that you want to share when you go back to Ukraine? And also, what does nuclear mean to you right now?
Thank you for the question. Well, you know, it is really... There are lots of tragic pictures in the museum. The children, little babies, before their demise, before their death, and we have similar pictures, unfortunately. Only tears are in my eyes. This is just a tragedy. How the people are capable to do something like that, especially with the children. How can you do that to the children? Honestly speaking, I don't understand that. I don't have for that adequate diagnosis. I cannot understand this disease. That is why I'm not a doctor to understand the sick Russians who are having such attitude towards us, and the tragedy which I saw on your pictures, all of that is really very similar. And in my speech, I was speaking about the shadow. I said that not in vain, because I could see the picture where there was only a shadow left of a human being who was just sitting and nothing was left. Only the fully incinerated life. This is the tragedy itself. So I decided to speak about that in the speech. The shadow which Putin wanted our country to look like. I found such an association. I do apologize for that. But this is my impression. The microphone to the right in the rear, please.
Wong from BBC News. I have 3 questions for you. I hope you don't mind me asking you. Number 1 is, what kind of weapons deals have you secured at the G7 summit, and who gave you what? Number 2 is, how confident will you get your F-16s, since no countries have promised them to you yet? Number 3 is, when will your counteroffensive happen? What conditions need to be fulfilled before you decide to launch it?
I'm not sure I will answer the 3 questions. First of all, which weapons?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit tired.
Sorry.
Yeah, the first was about the weapon, yes?
The first is, what kind of weapons deals have you secured at the G7 summit from the people that you have met? And who will give you what?
The weapons of high quality, it will be provided by everyone.
When will you get your F-16s, since no countries have promised?
We will be working on that, I'm sure, because we already have the understanding which states we are working with. We have been working before. We had the deblocked mechanisms of the training at F-16's fighter jets. We'll have them. I cannot tell you how many. This is not a secret. I really don't know. But as for the weapons, I wouldn't like to mention some of that, but so far, because we just don't have it. So far, still, the question is also very global. Artillery. There should be artillery. As for your third question, as for the counter-offensive, I do apologize. All of your questions are of such a character, that of not such a nature, so that I need to answer in a very common manner. Russia will feel when we'll have a counter-offensive. Thank you, dear colleagues. I do remind you, one question each, please. Let us respect all the rest of the journalists. The question from the left, please.
President Hugh Remington from Channel 10 in Australia. You met two leaders of major democratic nations, or not members of the G7, India and Australia. Can you tell us what you felt you got from your conversations with Mr. Modi? And Mr. Albanese of Australia has said that he doesn't rule out offering more support to Ukraine, but wants to do so in negotiations with your government. Did you have any discussions about anything new that Australia might do?
We are working with Australia, that is true. I cannot disclose any details. We had certain deliveries. We are grateful for those packages of support. We had a very nice meeting, the visit to Kiev, and I'm really grateful for that. And in fact, the visits of all of the leaders who are not afraid to come to us during the war, that is very respectful. As of Australia, India, the countries which do not belong to G7, for us the most important thing, just understand me, we don't have accidental meetings. I cannot afford myself to have accidental meetings because we are at war. I don't have time for that, really. So we were in Saudi Arabia before. We are working to involve the maximum amount of countries, number of countries with totally different continents, to involve all of them into diplomatic pressure onto Russia through the peace formula which is offered by Ukraine. This is why all of those meetings are important for us. Not only to be insisting as for the participants in the summit, no, but to be understood, comprehensible, because sometimes we understand that it is very hard to fight against narratives of the informational war which Russia waged many years before it waged the full-scale invasion into Ukraine. In informational sphere, it prevailed for many years in different continents and different countries, so I think that even some of the countries don't understand that they lost information war. And we are out of time, in fact, for speaking about these details. That is, whatever we can do today is to correct the situation, to make it appropriate, and we need to speak about that, mentioning the facts and to show it here. I'm grateful to you as the representatives of the journalist community that you are showing and informing people. You are saying the truth. Some of the states need this truth to be more frequent. Thank you. Please, from the rear.
Zelenskiy, thank you very much for your speech. My name is Kathleen Benoza, and I'm from the Japan Times. So my first question would be, with your surprise visit, all eyes are now on Ukraine, and some say this takes attention away from Hiroshima and nuclear disarmament. What do you think about that?
My participants is not a surprise. I was invited to take part in the meeting of G7, but my participation could be online. The visit offline is unexpected because of the security reasons, and because besides G7, the summit also involved other countries besides G7, which are very important to have meetings with Ukraine. Some of our conversations were really the discussions of the matters about Ukraine and other complicated situations in the world, but we paid most attention to the war in Ukraine. I consider that I need to be here. I would like to thank the states which helped us during all these times to deblock some of the issues beforehand we understood that I need to come here personally, and then we'll have the certain outcome. I'm grateful for that we found such an opportunity to be here and to deblock some of the issues that are so important. 2 more questions, please, and we will need to conclude. To the right, please.
Thank you so much for taking our questions. I'm Motoko Rich with the New York Times. You mentioned diplomatic pressure, but given the inefficacy of this diplomatic pressure so far on Russia, do you want countries like Japan, our host today, and South Korea to actually send lethal weapons to support the war in Ukraine?
Thank you for the question. We need to understand. Today, maybe this was my main point, and I'm so happy. Well, I don't know whether everybody was agreeing with me, but definitely there was no one who disagreed. This is a very important point. As for the diplomatic pressure onto Russia, and these are those formats of diplomatic solution of the war which is taking place in Ukraine. The most important to have the respect to the UN Charter and the international law. Russia doesn't have any chance to have any diplomatic ways while their troops are located on our territory, violating our territorial integrity and sovereignty, violating all the international laws. For me, it is very important. This is the diplomatic deblocking and understanding. We all understand that while the Russian troops are on the territory of Ukraine, no one will deal with them at all. That is so important. Further on, as for other steps, this is the peace formula, and there we have lots of crises and points described, and it is obvious how we can solve those crises. As for food security, as for the nuclear security, and bringing back our deported children. 20,000 of children is what officially documented, but we don't really know the real number of abducted children. There are lots of crises. It is very hard to solve those crises if we are alone. So that is why I'm so happy that I heard about the support from the states who are the G7 and not only G7 members of the today's meeting. Now about the weapons. Yes, I would really like that. I would like all of the states which are capable to provide help to us, for them to help. But I understand that there are certain legislative or constitutional complications. The last question, please, from here to the left. Your question, please. Thank you, Mr. President, for your visit in spite of such a complicated situation in Ukraine. What are you expecting most of all from Japan in the future? Thank you. With the Prime Minister and with his government, we had 2 meetings. There were several conversations. First of all, let me be honest, the technologies. Why? Well, because the recovery of Ukraine would be the signal for all of our people, the sign that the life is going on. This is so important, both about fast recovery plan and also the global recovery. We will recover Ukraine with the new technologies from energy to healthcare. And here, the experience of Japan is so important for us. Today, we were going through those spheres with the Prime Minister. We have full understanding. We have several spheres to deal with. Energy sphere, especially green energy, the railway, which is so important for us, where we would need Japanese modern technologies, healthcare, and so on. But I think that all of that is ahead of us, and all of that will have positive outcome, I'm sure. Dear colleagues, I thank you for the questions. Unfortunately, we're out of the time for the press conference. Thank you so much. Goodbye.